I've ended up doing this talk and what's motivated me to do it, how I've kind of linked it to my own professional journey and finding my way into product management. And then I'm going to talk about some of the kind of like wins and struggles and how often career journeys aren't a linear trajectory upward. They can be a little bit wiggly. And kind of just to keep going with that really and keep taking opportunities where you can, keep opening the doors, and hopefully kind of spread some good product management tips here and there along the way as well. So hopefully there's a little bit of something in there for everybody. So I'm Caroline. I'm currently a product specialist for HC1, which is a supporting role primarily to product management. So I am kind of in the mix, trying to understand what the business needs and wants and why, and making good changes to the product that support our teams to enable good care delivery ultimately to our residents. Because HC1 looks after a lot of care homes across the country and a lot of residents in those care homes. So typically, I find myself in the more of a commercial space, so looking after our financial systems, the billing and invoicing for our residents. I've worked on kind of our property management system. Um, and more recently, I've done a trial that has been resident focused, which has been a great opportunity to get really close to technology making a difference to enabling kind care. It's been a really cool opportunity. Um, so my very first job was actually in recruitment. I did that for a year, and then I found my way into healthcare. So I've worked for a couple of different companies. Longest serving is at HC1. And as Michael said, I actually started out in the finance space, so processing the invoices for residents, collecting the cash, recovering payments, and dealing with everything in between. So that gave me quite a good, strong commercial grounding in understanding our business and how it works and how important it is that we bill correctly, that we get people into the homes, and we kind of look after the residents throughout their time with us in all aspects of that. Um, and I worked on the finance system that we primarily used with Norman, who has said he is my line manager. So I would do meetings with him, kind of looking at improvements for the system and identifying opportunities. And I'm someone who's always been very curious, and I've kind of always had a bit of a reputation for asking questions and wanting to know how things work. And so I would often come up with ideas and suggestions or kind of say to Norm, well, how does that work? And I remember one particular instance where Norm showed me back-end SQL tables and was showing me kind of scripts. And at the time, I didn't really have a clue what any of it meant, not having a tech background, but was just very like, oh, wow, this is cool. This is like so interesting to see this system that I've only ever worked in the front of as a user. There's this whole kind of thing in the background that makes it tick. Um, and then from that, Norm was looking for somebody to work with him, and was quite persistent over the fact that he thought I would be a good fit. And after a while, I believed him. So I kind of took my role in product management, not really understanding exactly what it entailed, and actually kind of feeling a little bit out of my depth. Like I'm not a native techie, like, but I was joining our DDAP team, could I do it sort of thing? Would I fit in? Um, and whilst there are lots of different flavors of product management, if you look on LinkedIn, people post and kind of say all sorts of different things. You look at job roles, some of them are very technical, some of them are more customer focused, etc. But I found the key to good product management, in my opinion, and sort of through my skill set, has been around getting to the bottom of what somebody needs and why, and getting that alignment with the business and really understanding how, if you make a change, what difference is that going to make to the business? What win, what goal does that align with? And I have always enjoyed, like I say, getting to understand people's roles and the impact. So that kind of thing came naturally to me. Um, and I suppose I've progressed from there, looked at lots of different resources, courses, picked up different book recommendations and things like that, and just continued to take an interest. And the more I got into it, the more I decided I absolutely loved it. I've really enjoyed getting to work with lots of different people across the business, and I think that's a great thing about product management is you get to speak directly to your users, or you certainly should be if you aren't. But you also get to speak to quite senior people in the business so that you make sure you understand the objective, right out the gate from them. And then you're also working with your cross-functional teams, making sure you've got that representation there, that skill and expertise that you do need. And that's when I realized I didn't need to have all the technical knowledge. I just needed to know who did, so that we could kind of like break down any barriers and make sure that anything I said to my stakeholders was actually achievable and that we had like a plan forward. So the link to Taylor Swift, Why the Life of a Showgirl. Um, so I was looking for a dance workout in early October, and there's a YouTuber called MadFit who does lots of different workouts, including dance workouts. I was just looking for something fun, low energy, and at that point, I hadn't actually heard Taylor's new release of Life of a Showgirl. And then in this video, you do a couple of songs off the album, and then Life of the Showgirl is the one at the end. And it's all about Taylor's telling the story of a fictional showgirl called Kitty. And it's Taylor's character goes to see her perform and is totally inspired by her. And she wants to break into being a showgirl. And Kitty, instead of responding with kind of superficiality, tells it like it is, warning her about the reality of the lifestyle, which goes far beyond the glitter and the glamour. And the song is an ode to women who navigate the challenges of show business. Oh, I've just realised I haven't been changing my slides. Sorry, guys. Apologies. I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, so that's what the song is about. And it made me think of when I was younger, I did a performance. And at the end of the performance, I had a family friend come and give me a bouquet. And there's a line in the song about thank you for the bouquet. And it made me think a lot about how I really wanted to get into product management. And I did apply earlier in the year to get the title of product manager and hadn't achieved that at the time. So in some ways, I was kind of like manifesting that journey, and the song just kind of reminded me of you maybe won't get it straight away, but you will get there eventually as long as you're persistent. So you might think that I am a Swiftie, and if you asked me if I was, I would actually probably say no. However, I was outed by my Spotify Wrapped earlier. Apparently, I'm in the top 2% globally of listening to Taylor Swift. Yeah, which surprised me. But when I got to thinking about why that is, I tend to find actually she's my unintentional productivity hack. So I tend to kind of borrow her boss girl or boss babe energy and the poppy beats to help me boost my mood or change my mood if I feel a little bit stuck. And if I'm procrastinating about something or something feels like a really big task, there's a couple of songs that I know I'll just kind of pop on, earphones in, and change the mood and kind of crack on. So that's why Taylor Swift works for me personally. So I joined the DDAT team in June 23. And as I said, my role is sort of a supporting role. And through that time, I was rehearsing stakeholder management, sort of figuring out ways to work with existing teams. And we were trying to change the sort of stance from everybody working in silos and kind of heads of having these ideas of things they want to do with the products to breaking that down using product management by making sure we've got that overall alignment to the business goals above those kind of departmental silos, if you like. Um, so I spent a lot of time trying to build good cross-functional teams, get the representation in there, and adopting good methodologies, trying to get good practice of reviewing backlogs together, refining the user stories, what people need and why. Um, and lifting the curtain on delivery as well. So once we've got clarity and we know exactly what we're going to do, how are we going to deliver those changes? Um, and at that time, because it was quite a big business change and the products that I just so happened to be working on, we didn't necessarily get a lot of traction. So in early 2025, I got asked to do a pilot that had come in for a technology, which I'll tell you all about shortly. So that was really cool. And there was a few other things happening. We adopted a product internally for product managers to use, and I was asked to review it, and things were just looking really good. I was feeling really good about my position in the team. And an opportunity came up to apply to be product manager. So I went for it. Um, and I interviewed in March. And like looking back on that at the time, I was absolutely, full of like theory. I'd absorbed so much knowledge and information on product management and all these methodologies and things like that. And I've always been quite naturally enthusiastic. And I felt very comfortable in my own sort of soft skills and transferable skills because I do believe there are a lot of transferable skills to product management. But unfortunately, what I didn't have was kind of that measured end-to-end experience of I've achieved these amazing things. I had a few little wins to talk about. We made a custom config to a product that allowed us to see debt and kind of bill better and monitor that process. So there were some good things in there. But at the time we were kind of still adopting new processes, so I didn't have the wins. And so then when it up against other people who'd already had that experience, I wasn't the strongest at the time. But I did have this opportunity to do a pilot. So that was kind of my thing that I clung to after that is, okay, well, I didn't get it this time, but I've got the opportunity and I can go into it next time after this if I approach it in the right way, saying, I can do this. Like this is my job now kind of thing. So obviously thinking that you're ready to do it and then actually stepping up into it can feel a little bit different. And when I was asked to do the trial, I remember having a couple of people come up to me, quite senior in the business, saying, "Oh, I heard you doing this trial. You'll be great," and just kind of walk away. It's like, okay, and like when you're staring something down the barrel, something new, it can be quite intimidating. And so one of the first things I did right out the gate was write down what I thought success looked like for the trial. So trying to understand like what's the end game here? What are we trying to achieve? And that kind of calmed me down a little bit and gave me a bit of direction and also became a little bit of a guiding tool for me to say, well, should I be working on that? Does it fit against this kind of like what success looks like? So that was really helpful and a tip I would recommend to anybody. Um, And I've said about finding your casting director. So hopefully you're as fortunate as I am in that I have a very supportive team. And it's really beneficial to be able to find someone who you can check in with. So in my case, I spoke regularly to Ross and ran things past Norm as well. But having somebody there in the background that you could discuss things with was really important. And I made what I think is probably quite an important switch. So before applying for the PM role, I was asking a lot of questions because I was eager to learn and I wanted people to tell me how to do things. Whereas through the AI trial, I realized actually what I needed to do is say, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm owning this. This is the direction I'm going in. And allow people to give me constructive commentary on, okay, well, don't forget to speak to such and such, or maybe do this. But on lots of occasions, it was like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good plan. And so through that, I was able to kind of demonstrate competency and give confidence that I had it under control. And, obviously with that regular touch point, if anything went awry or I hit a blocker, I had somebody to speak to. And at this point, I've got to shout out as well the Reed mentoring community, because there's some fabulous people who are willing to share and give expertise and will share their skills and guidance. So if you don't have somebody that you can kind of lean on in your own organization, I would highly recommend finding somebody else like through Network. So I'll tell you quickly a little bit about the trial that I did. So it's a kind of a clinical monitoring tool that we can install in resident rooms. So there's a camera that you put up and a little PC, and it monitors what's going on in the room. It puts it through an AI model, so nobody sees any CCTV quality footage at all. It's very privacy forward. It went through all of our kind of internal governance and check-in to make sure that it was absolutely appropriate and bulletproof in that regard. And then it sends out alerts and alarms. So if someone's going to fall over, or they have fallen over, then it will send an alert and alarm so that somebody can respond. And it's also a little bit like a Fitbit in that you get insights into the general resident well-being. So how they're sleeping, for example. And we were also able to stop doing night checks, kind of opening the door to make sure that people were asleep and safe, and kind of actually do that remotely through the app, so we're not disturbing them, which has been an incredible win for our residents and for their well-being and sleep. Because I don't know about you, but if I get disturbed, I get a bit grumpy. So, we've seen a lot of improvements from that. So this was small scale, and it was only in 2 of our homes, but it was full fat in that it included hardware installation that I needed to manage, software on mobiles, desktop, networks to kind of configure so that we could monitor how much data was being used. All user integration, designing role permissions, who can do what, solution and incident support. If there's any issues, how do people log them? Who do they speak to? And obviously, the most important thing through all of this is measuring it, through the trial and at the end as well. So all of these things obviously required a lot of support and kind of cross-functional working to have clarity of. And I did a lot of working out what our measures should be, because this was a new technology to the company as well. So there wasn't really kind of like a cookie cutter template that we could take for this. We had to consider what we thought we would see out of it, what we would want to see out of it, and kind of go from there. So obviously, when it kind of gets down to it, like you're on your own, kid. Like even with that kind of background and that support, you've just got to make it work. So there's I had this hyper awareness that as I'd never done this before, there was things I didn't know that needed to be considered. And that I might make a misstep just due to lack of experience, or they say ignorance is bliss, but in this scenario, it definitely wouldn't have been. And we had a lot of nervousness as well in the organization, because, some people, when you mention AI, there's a lot of nervousness around that. And because what we do is provide a service and we're there to care for our residents, I expected that there would be nervousness and opposition around, will it have any negative impact on our care delivery? And anyone who challenges you or appears to make something difficult or has contradicting views, you can use them to your advantage, because they are telling you what they are worried about and what your potential missteps could be. So they're like highlighting how to avoid kind of certain catastrophes potentially. And ultimately, if you work well with your naysayers, as I've put it on the slide, they will actually become your biggest advocates. And that was kind of what happened for us with the trial. Everyone who was really nervous about, will the carers still spend quality time? Will they, go and tend to people who need the support? Have absolutely been blown away by the results and have seen the difference that it's made, thankfully. But I knew what to look for. So if we had have had any concerns out of the gate, we could have intervened. So that was like a real positive. So any opposition you get, I think it's all about reframing it as much as possible. Talking engineering, so I've already kind of said I'm not a native techie, and talking about getting users into Azure and how we integrated them with the third parties platform was new to me. And the engineers didn't understand my user stories. So I needed to find other ways to communicate with them. And a piece of advice as well is there's so many methodologies and so many principles of ways to write things, and they are great guiding tools, but don't stick to them so rigidly that like it's lost in translation. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just really simplify it, ask questions, and ask the other person what they need. And again, thankfully, that went really smoothly, which was great because it was probably the area I was most nervous about. And as I said before, throughout it, you just need to make sure that you are giving confidence as much as possible to your stakeholders. So that's not misleading anyone. It's just giving people confidence that you have it under control, that you're listening to any concerns that are raised, and that if there's any slips in time frame or anything that happens out of your control, which definitely can happen, that you are sharing that with them and you're bringing them along on the journey. With this particular technology, we've had a couple of challenges over people misunderstanding what it can and can't do. So that really clear communication and documentation up front is like really important. We sort of had a couple of challenges where through installation, we had health and safety concerns, things that we had to work through. Then the supply was getting frustrated because I felt like we were being slow. So that there's always something that kind of comes up like a bit of a bump in the road, but it's all about how you approach it. And that good, clear communication, understanding what people need to remove those blockers. You've just got to kind of wade in there and figure out a way through. Um, yeah, so there's been various different challenges at different points, and it's all part and parcel. And I think you need to expect it, and if you expect it, it's kind of easier to deal with. And if it ends up not going as challenging as you thought, that's great. That turns into a win. Um, and definitely document your work. So again, kind of going back to where I'd interviewed previously earlier in the year, I think you should be working publicly, like talk about the work that you do confidently. Make sure you're documenting things, and that's not only practical in case you're off and somebody needs to pick up on something, but it also just shows competence. If that knowledge is there and you can direct somebody to a source really easily, or people know who to contact and things like that, it just makes life so much easier for everybody. And becomes a great source of reference, and it's something you can come back to as well. I often found initially documenting some of the solutions and some of the technical side of it a little bit challenging, but in doing that, it helped me identify any gaps as well and anything we hadn't thought of. So it was really beneficial. But ultimately, you just kind of need to, stay calm, keep moving and adapt. Like if you do hit a block, just adapt. How can you address that otherwise? Um, yeah. So obviously, kind of, again, kind of talking a little bit about my own journey. Um, you know, Growth isn't linear. No one is the finished article. So don't let titles scare you. I think in product management, you can work with directors and heads of and execs and all these sorts of things, and it might seem scary, but we're all there to kind of to do a job. You're doing or leading that project or doing that piece of work for a reason because you have some expertise and skill set in that. And don't be afraid to ask them questions and get out of them and kind of clarify that understanding that you need to drive it. Um, Ask to be in the room as well. Ross and Norm will know that I'm quite bold, and I will ask if I can be involved in certain conversations because it's important to learn and grow. And if people don't let you in, it can be harder to do that. Um, there was a meeting happening with the supplier and our chief of strategy, and I was interested. I wanted to know what they were discussing, so I went up to our chief of strategy and said, "I heard you're having a meeting. Can I come?" And the worst he could do at that point was say no, but he let me in. And I think it's really important to do that. If you feel like you've got value or voice to add to something, like you should be there. And certainly if you are product manager and you are owning that journey, you need to be informed and part of kind of crafting the story and the direction that you're going in, and make sure that there is alignment as well. Certainly if it's a supplier or this, kind of a third party sort of scenario where you're not directly in control of it. Um, Obviously, as I've said before, there's lots of different methods, ways of approaching things, ways you can run workshops and document as is and should be processes. Try different things. Don't stick rigidly to anything. Read about stuff and see what you think would suit your particular scenario. Most organizations have guidance that they want you to stick to and work within, and that's great, and you totally should. But just be adaptive and know what works for you and for that group of people as well. And collect lessons learned like badges of honor, because that's what they are. The first time you do something, it's not going to be smooth. The second time you do something, it will be smoother, but there will still be fine tuning. And it goes on like that, like I believe throughout your career and kind of whatever you're working on. And I've kind of had a bit of an awareness that through this, as I said before, I wasn't necessarily going to know everything, but I knew that looking back, it would be quite a formative thing for me, that I would learn a lot of lessons through this and that I would kind of reflect back on it and build on it. And so, I would encourage everybody to do that as well. And obviously, ultimately, you've got to believe that you can do it. So again, working visibly and advocating for the work that you're doing and the results that you're seeing, share it, give people that information up front so that they know you've got it under control and everything is going really well. You're sort of presenting your vision for the product, for the direction of the organization and kind of how it's going to make a difference. Again, because this was a new technology, there was lots of things to consider around it being AI and appropriate usage, and making sure that people know that the information the app gives them they can use, but they need to use their own skills and expertise to kind of frame that judgment. And obviously you need to be accountable yourself to get things done. As I sort of said, you are on your own. The only person that's going to get it over the hill is you, and you will need to kind of G other people up, ask them what they need, make sure that they're on track so that you're not suffering with those timelines. And the best thing to do is just be really direct and clear about it. And if it's not working, have a good, honest conversation with that person about what do they need, how can you work better with them? Because we do all work differently, have different styles of communication. So it's learning to be adaptable and kind of figuring out what you need, which was definitely the case for me when it came to working with some of our more tech people. um, So yeah, so obviously like from me kind of reflecting on this, like I've tested my soft skills now. Like I know that it works, that I've delivered something good or almost delivered, will be finished in January. But have had a lot of positive feedback. There's been very, very few things gone wrong, if really anything. I've tested and utilized different things that I have read and learned and been taught, and that, my organization kind of recommends about product management. So I've lived the PM role now, thankfully, and on the whole have succeeded. Um, so this experience kind of becomes my set list, my proof to kind of take forward going into doing more roles. Um, and so just for the cheesy tagline, I've got to say that now I know the life of a showgirl. Um, and I've obviously like really enjoyed doing it. And I'm looking forward to continuing to refine my skills and test things further. Um, And from a trial perspective, just to kind of give you a little bit of an update on kind of how that's gone, we've had very enthusiastic staff adoption, which was really good. So figuring out what would work, we have through our carers people who are some very technically confident and comfortable, others not. English might not be everybody's first language in our homes. And so figuring out a simple way to meet people's needs. Thankfully, we've had some great tech delivery already across the organisation. And so I was able to lean into some of that experience that we've already done through digital care planning and things. But getting amazing feedback from teams, knowing that you've kind of empowered people and they're enjoying their job more has been greatly satisfying. And our residents are sleeping better, which is definitely a win. And we know more about them too as a result of this trial, which is just really cool. So for me, I've kind of had such a great alignment to one, just loving the product manager role, but also the passion kind of for the industry and the technology. So I feel very lucky because in reality, I think at the time when the trial needs to be run, we were busy. The people that should really have been running it were busy doing other things. And so I got asked, like fairly off the cuff, and I'm so pleased that it worked out that way because it has been a great opportunity for me, and it's been lovely to kind of sit around the table with Norm and the other product managers, and like learn from them as well, and have my own little experience. So just for kind of like a bit of a keeping up the Swift theme, I just wanted to sort of stay on trend with a bit of a Swifty mood playlist. There was more I could have included in terms of song titles that would have been quite flippant. But if someone's pushing your buttons, I recommend I Forgot That You Existed. Because it's just quite a good one for just like shaking it off. If you've had a bit of a clash with somebody or whatever, it's just a great one for that. Feeling overlooked, the man and who's afraid of little old me. You just need to push past that barrier. And usually when you're uncomfortable, it's actually because you're growing. It just maybe doesn't feel like it in the moment. If you're doubting yourself, you absolutely need to just shake it off and start again. And if you're feeling stuck or you've slipped up, then Bejeweled is a great one because you just need to keep on shining. And if you've got antsy stakeholders, you just need them to calm down and figure out how to do that. And if you've got a win to celebrate, then Long Live is really good. And I think that's the key. You need to celebrate and collect your wins, even little things. One part of your delivery, you've done that. That first thing's gone well, great. My first couple of users that signed in on that first morning, relief. Yes, they're in. And kind of seeing those people online. And I think one of the things that probably isn't talked about as much as it should be in product management is the importance of feedback. It's been the biggest thing, the thing I've enjoyed the most is collecting feedback about the product. So not all products are going to achieve the same level of kind of satisfaction in some ways. Maybe they're not all as kind of pretty and as impactful as this, but it is really important that you do collect feedback and you understand how it's being used and received, and that you do that throughout and with through the life cycle of the product as well, and that you're continuing to meet your customer need and because it changes, it adapts, as you give an organization or a customer more insight into something, they then get more curious and they want a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So, always consider kind of how you can expand on that, and make sure you're still aligned and still providing that good service. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, like in a nutshell. Hopefully people have gotten some value out of that. I haven't gone heavily kind of product management in terms of all of the mythologies because I wasn't 100% sure who would attend. And like I say, it's focused mostly on kind of reflection of my journey. And I would encourage everybody, no matter your stage in your career or your title, to make time to reflect on what's going well, what you'd like to do more of, and all that sort of thing, so that you're prepared and as aligned as you can be to enjoying your work, and getting passion from that. So if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, I would really love to connect with more people, because I think networking is great. And this Reed Women in Technology community is fabulous for that. And as I said before, I would definitely recommend the mentoring side. I did connect with another product manager, and it was great to have somebody who didn't know me at work, and who would see me with a fresh pair of eyes, and kind of help me view my value and abilities in a bit of a different way. So definitely do that if you haven't already, or if you think you're someone who could add value to somebody else and help somebody, like with where I was sort of earlier this year, then that's really valuable too, and I'm sure you would find that rewarding. Has anyone got any questions or anything?
I have one for you, Caroline, if I can. Well, I kind of have
Please
two.
do.
That's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you for that. That was super interesting. Like really, really interesting. Really nice as well. Just like as a almost a bit of feedback is how you speak about what you do. Like there's a clear sense of like real ownership about it, which is lovely. Like you can tell you're so passionate about it because you say things like, I can't remember what the specific phrase is, but like my users. I love it when my guys like own stuff so much that they really like, you can tell you care about it, which is great. But that wasn't a question, but well done.
Thank you.
So I've got two questions. So what have you been most surprised at, like in yourself when you've moved into this? I guess if you maybe take the almost a pilot of you've done more recently, what surprised you the most? And then secondly, what would you say, when I look personally for me to bring more product management into my team, that I'm likely to get? Like, what's the biggest thing I'm going to drive the most value out for me as kind of a tech director? Where am I going to get the most value out of having a product manager? What benefit is it going to bring to me? And then I had a third one. I'm really sorry.
Wow,
just a quick question. Would you say as a product manager, and this might be a real easy yes or no, can you manage multiple products, or would you say you should only have your products in one, like your product management in one basket?
Okay, so
I'm so sorry. I can repeat at any point.
No, it's good. Right, I'll take the last one first.
Yes, thank
you. So I think the answer is probably both, and it depends a little bit on pace. So my personal preference is to be able to focus on one in the main, because I have benefited massively from the space in between kind of needing to do things. If you end up with such a crammed diary of flitting around and taking off this hat and then talking to this team and talking to this team, it can be really difficult to give your best to any one thing. So you can absolutely manage multiple products in one go, but I think you need to make sure you've got clear objectives and there is a pecking order, if you like, in terms of what is the priority, and you've got a rough plan in terms of, well, we're delivering something here on this product, or we're in the discovery phase here. So it's keeping structure and clarity, really. Yeah, so the first question was what had surprised me the most.
But on that question, Caroline, I think Norman's got his hand up, and happy for, if you are, happy for the other product experts to
absolutely
give their input as well, so whether they agree with you or not.
Sure. This will be interesting. Challenge me. Come on.
I don't quite know how to take that, Caroline. Just to add a bit of weight to what Caroline has just said, we collaboratively manage multiple products in the commercial space, and sometimes it can genuinely feel like you're spinning plates.
Yeah.
And that's a bit, for me, that is one of the big risks of managing multiple products, but also managing expectation and managing your stakeholders. particularly around, well, you've got that bun fight of, well, I want this, and somebody else saying I want that. That's number one priority, but it might be your number one priority, this is their number one priority. But it's getting that buy-in from further up the chain, exec, where you kind of get that holistic view and say, well, actually, from a return on investment or from a benefit to the residents in our care, we're better doing this one over here with yours coming as a fast follower. So I think it's all about, there is no right and wrong answer. Caroline is correct in saying you can do both, but managing multiple products has its complications for definite.
Yeah. And just to add to that as well, I think as a product manager, if you have competing priorities, that's where you really need to focus on what drives the most value. So that forms what questions you are asking of your customers or of the business. So for example, if Michael comes to us and say, well, this is going to save me 25 across 25 people, it's going to save me 2 hours a week or whatever, then obviously that's a big saving. So it's understanding how you quantify the value of a change and kind of the priority of a product in that way, because it can be difficult to do that. Certainly when you build good relationships with your departments and you want to help them out, that's kind of how you've got to look at it as a business. And obviously, hopefully you are getting that steer top down as well in terms of what is the priority. Do you want to come in, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I look at this from a slightly different level, and I think the reality is you have to have people looking after multiple products. You don't have that luxury generally to be able to say you are product specific, but it is all about just managing those stakeholders, and the guys have touched on that a lot. For me, the biggest skill in the arsenal of a product manager is not their technical ability, it is their ability to manage those stakeholders, because that's what matters. Everybody on the same page about that prioritization. What's those overall goals? What are we aiming for? What's the journey that we're going to go on? That's where you're really important. And that's the really interesting thing that I find with Caroline's journey. She's not technical from a background perspective, but what she's bringing to the table is that really strong stakeholder management. She can engage with people. She can really lead in a conversation, and she listens. And again, as a product manager, massive part of the role, listening. What does your customer want? What's your stakeholder looking for? So for me, it has to be multiple, just because of the reality of what you can actually afford to do. But it is about having the right people with the right approach to be able to handle that. And as I said in the chat, I mean, complexity will play into that as to how many they can do. But certainly for me, it has to be multiple, but you need the right people.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal is, if you are working on multiple things or even just one product, is how do you get like a minimum viable product and then build on that and it be iterative in your approach. You'll hear lots of different methodologies talked about, waterfall, agile, all these different sorts of things. And ultimately, to keep the plate spinning and to try and keep your stakeholders as happy as possible, what you want is that incremental improvement all the time, where you sort of give them that little bit and be like, great, right, here's that improvement. Let's see how you go on with that. Like, let's get some feedback and we can build on it from there. And then while they're busy settling in with that, you're working somewhere else, kind of giving something to someone else. So it's that juggling act, really.
Super, thanks, guys.
So you said about what surprised me the most, and it would probably be the realization that I didn't need to have technical skills to be good at my job, because that was totally the thing I was nervous about originally. I joined meetings in the start. We have a couple internally. So we have one called Cross Team Operate, where all of our tech-based teams come together. We have like a weekly change board, and the acronyms used to absolutely kill me in the start. Like, I just did not have a clue.
I just gloss over and go, that's nice.
I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And so, I was often sat there with like a notebook or Google open on one of my screens, like, figuring out like, what are they talking about? But I think in some ways it's actually been a strength, because it's meant I haven't I haven't narrowed myself down into a particular, we have to do it this way or it has to be a certain way. It's allowed me to stay very focused on why we need something to be a particular way, not how it's done. And to rely then on the expertise of the people that really do know what the options are, can find ways of doing things to come back to me with that solution. So I think, like, the communication side of it is probably the biggest element. And then I think you asked a question, was it about how it could give you the best value?
Yeah, I guess kind of, yeah, so if I'm, I guess your equivalent of Michael in my organization, for me, so we have some product people, I don't even really know what they're termed, in the business that slightly moonlight as product owner, product managers-ish, but yeah, they're all a bit of a mishmash, I'll be honest. But so I have really, like, I'll be honest, slick, lovely delivery teams that are smashing out of the park on projects and products that we look after. But we do have a bit of a screaming gap for more of that kind of like strategic view of what's going on, because certainly I don't want to be making decisions from a tech perspective. My guys should just be doing what the business want them to do. And we don't really have enough of that yet. We're doing pretty well without it, but we could do with certainly more of it. But it's kind of, it's not really convincing. I think I know I need one. It's just also actually probably convincing a little bit more of the business why they need it, to have someone that's more defined in that position and doing a really, really good job. So yeah, what would you say, like, the key value, like what value would you bring to me, Caroline? I'm not going to steal you, don't worry. I still know people. I'll leave you where you are. But if you were coming to me and I said, right, we've got Caroline coming in, this is what she's going to do, this is really where she's going to make a massive difference.
Yeah, so it's the in-between person. It's the person that dances in the middle of all the different interested parties. So you've described product owners. Like, we would say we have product owners at HC1. So like our finance system, we've got a couple of different areas of that. We have product owners for each bit, and that's because they and their teams are subject matter experts. They know what they need to work, why they need it to work a particular way. And so that product owner should be knowing how their team delivers into your organizational objectives. And then they should work with me as a product manager to say, well, this is what we need to do to achieve this goal, or this is the problem we're trying to solve right now. And then I would use my knowledge of the product, work with the tech teams, that kind of scenario to work out how we actually do that in a way that is realistic and practical for the product. A product manager is kind of somebody who influences without authority in a lot of ways. Like, you don't really, you're not necessarily a decision maker. You're the one that, like, brings the clarity to what reveals itself to be the obvious choice, if you ask the right questions and you understand the process. Obviously the stakeholder management is a really big part of it, kind of keeping everybody informed. And then you have all of the practical kind of side of it, making sure that things are documented. You said your delivery team is already really good. Are you keeping your product knowledge up to date? Are your incident support people aware of, like, how to support this new change in the product? There's lots of different elements to that. Looks like Ross has had to drop off, I think.
Yeah, cool. I can see it. It's just translating it to other people, isn't it? But yeah, no.
Yeah.
That was super good, Caroline. Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Thank
My
you.
6-year-old would have also really enjoyed that, and probably product management too. She likes Taylor Swift, but there we go.
And I haven't changed me. I've just realised.
Final words from you, Michael?
Slide again.
Just as a follow-up to obviously talking about what does a product manager kind of bring to the table, if you're trying to sell it in your organization, I think that the biggest sell is actually just culturally being ready to accept that structure of product management.
Yeah,
that's the challenge. So rather than the individual role, I think that the bigger challenge that we had in HC1 was actually that switch to actually having a product management structure and that understanding of that chain of ownership. Who plays what role in that value chain of delivering the product. If you don't get that right, it doesn't matter how good your PM is, you get a lot of confusion. and you get a lot of things fall through the gaps. I think as you look to try and embed anything around this, it's very much about actually getting that buy-in in what's that end-to-end around product management, and then the roles will just speak for themselves, because it is of great value, but people can't always see that. So it's really getting them to understand the structure, and then the roles will just follow.
Yeah, cool.
Amazing. Well, Caroline, that was absolutely awesome. There are so many people that haven't attended today that I'll make sure see the recording, because I think just your approach and the inspirational story will be so useful to so many people in and outside of product. And also, I get asked a lot of questions by people that come to run their first webinar for us about what's the format, should I use a certain style? And I just think the fact that you've brought your own personality to this is like the perfect style, and it's obvious how good you be with stakeholders because of that approach, just like being yourself. So yeah,
Thank you.
Excellent choice, Norman. Michael, ever hired her, well done. And thanks all for coming up, showing up and supporting us today. Awesome.
Thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great to do this, and I've really enjoyed preparing it, so I'm pleased it's landed well. And apologies to people watching the recording for me forgetting to flip through me slides. Too busy gassing.
She took some persuading, Kevin, but she gave in the end.
I did. So pleased that I did. It's yeah, absolutely best choice.
Yeah.
It's good to put yourself
Great.
out there, so well done, Caroline. It was good.
Thank you
Really
very
well done.
much.